This moment right here, Cypher sitting with Agent Smith while eating a steak he knows is not real. He knows it's digital signals firing into his brain by the machines to make him think that this delicious, juicy steak is real. He knows the machines are using humans as batteries, and humans aren't actually experiencing any of the world in front of their eyes. And yet, knowing all that, he betrays his fellow unplugged partners because ignorance is bliss. There are far too many ciphers in our world today. It should be of no shock to you that America is experiencing a moment so historic that the next generation of children will read about it in their US history class and wonder how we could have let this happen. And we asked the same question to Germans who went through their historic moment in the 1930s and 40s. It seemed so obvious that if something like that were to happen to us, we would never stand for it. We would take to the streets and grind our country to a halt before we ever allowed the democracy that we held on such a pedestal to come crumbling down. Well, it turns out, not only are we not so different from Cypher, we're really not that different from the Germans of yesteryear either, except we had the history books to warn us ahead of time. Yet here we are. Since the new year, 8 people have had their lives ended at the hands of a masked, secret police force. And those 8 are in addition to the 32 lost souls in 2025. People walking the streets of America are being told to carry their papers with them at all times. We have a president doing everything in his power to keep the list of a known child exploitation ring hidden, one that he has been credibly accused of taking part in himself. And the financial cost of just living in this country has never been as disproportionate as it is today. America is failing. We are failing. And I do not understand why we all aren't talking about this a lot more than we are. I mean, I have an idea why. Ignorance is bliss after all, but we're past the point of deciding if we want to be Cypher. Do we want to stay plugged in and blissfully unaware of the horror of our reality? Or do we want to stand up together and push back against a system designed against us? See, here's what I've come to realize. Most people, they don't know that they're Cypher. They don't know that they're choosing the steak. They think that they're awake, woke even. They think that they know what's going on, that they caught a headline or two, so they must have a general understanding of what's happening, but they're seeing maybe 5% of what's actually happening. And unfortunately, they think that 5% is the whole picture because the system that we live in is designed for exactly this. So how do you know if you're in the matrix? How do you know if you're seeing the real thing or if it's just the crumbs of what's happening? Well, here's what I think. If you can tell me who's playing in the Super Bowl, but you can't tell me what happened in Minneapolis last week, you're in the matrix. And I'm not saying that to shame you. I'm saying it because that's literally what happened. While federal agents were shooting US citizens in the face or mag dumping into their lifeless bodies in the streets of Minneapolis, the news was dominated by Super Bowl hype or a celebrity wedding rumor or a TikTok nurse who got fired for saying something stupid. And just think about that. 2 American citizens were shot and killed by federal agents, and over 80% of Americans saw the footage somewhere on social media. But how many of those people can tell you what happened after that? How many know that our federal government story about what happened was a complete lie? How many know that in just this month alone in Minneapolis, federal judges found that ICE violated over 100 court orders, with one chief justice saying that ICE may have violated more court orders this month than some agencies have violated in their entire existence. Most people saw the thing, felt bad about it for a second, and then moved on to whatever the next thing was because the system gave them just enough information to feel aware. Yeah, I heard about that. That's terrible. And then immediately, it gave them something else to focus on. It's not called Flood the Zone by accident. The goal is to throw as much shit at us as possible so that we can't focus on one thing for too long. And that's how our matrix works. It's not that they hide everything from you. They can't. The information is out there, but they bury it under so much noise that you see it and then forget it. It's just on to the next thing. And again, I'm not saying any of this to make you feel bad. I'm saying this because the matrix is designed to make you think you're awake when you're not. It gives you just enough information to feel informed, just enough controversy to feel engaged, just enough choice to feel free. But you're not seeing the actual thing. You're seeing the version of the thing that keeps you comfortable, the 5% version that's been packaged and sold to you so that you don't ask too many questions. But I want to be real with you. You cannot protect yourself by staying in the matrix. The system will come for you whether you're paying attention or not. The only difference is whether you get to see it coming. Right now, while you're focused on your job, your kids, and your day-to-day routine, the federal government is normalizing masked agents killing citizens in the streets. The Supreme Court has carved out immunity that puts the president above the law. 350 lawsuits have been filed against the federal government for ignoring court orders. The Republican Congress has all but relinquished their co equal power to the White House. Taxpayer funds are being frozen. There are agencies being dismantled without congressional approval. And that doesn't even touch this guy. And there are so many people who think that they're safe because it's not affecting them right now. They think that if they just focus on their own life, it won't ever touch them. But it will. It's already touching all of us. They just don't see it yet. And by the time they do see it, by the time it affects them directly in a way that they aren't able to ignore anymore, it'll be too late to do anything about it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that's dramatic. That's not going to happen here. This is America. But that's what they thought in Germany too. And I'm not talking about the tip of the iceberg evils that we all know about. I'm talking about what happened before that, the slow part, the part where German democracy eroded while people looked the other way and focused on just their own lives. From 1930 to 1932, Germany was under what historians call a presidential dictatorship. The president used emergency powers over and over again. The president politicized the justice system. The president restricted press access and availability. And day by day, violence and aggression by the state got more and more normalized. And by 1932, democracy in Germany was effectively dead before Hitler even took power, before the camps, before any of the objectively crazy stuff that we all learn about in history class. So, why do people stay in the matrix? Why do they choose not to see? Because waking up is terrifying. If you wake up, if you really see what's happening, you can't go back. You can't unsee it. And once you see it, you have to decide what you're going to do about it. And all the options are hard. Do you speak up at work when somebody makes a comment defending what's happening? Do you have an uncomfortable conversation with your family member who doesn't think that any of this is such a big deal? Do you show up at a protest even though you're scared? Do you risk your job, your relationship, your safety? Do you risk your money? Those are real life questions with real life consequences. And it's so much easier to just stay blind, to focus on the things that you can control, to tell yourself that you're just one person. And what difference does it make? And I get it. I get it. I really do. Sometimes sometimes I wish I could go back. Sometimes I envy the people who don't see this. People who get to go to bed at night without this urge to make sure that World War III hasn't started because of a tweet by our president. People who get to say, I don't do politics because their communities haven't spent decades getting fucked in the ass by a political system they don't have the luxury to ignore. But I can't because I was raised to believe that being kind, being honest, having integrity, that those weren't just American values. They were human values. Everything that I was taught to believe in is being destroyed right in front of me. And I can't just look away from that. But a lot of people can. A lot of people do. And I think a part of why they can is because the system makes it so easy to convince yourself that staying in the matrix is the smart choice, the healthy choice, the realistic choice. So what does it actually mean to wake up? What does it mean to unplug from the matrix? First and foremost, no. Politics does not need to be your entire identity. You can spend 15 to 30 minutes a day staying connected to what's going on in the world and don't pretend like you don't have 15 minutes to get informed. Of course you do. It could be as simple as listening to NPR's Up First every morning on your way to work. It's a 10 to 15-minute news podcast that's designed to just give you a quick catch up on the 3 to 4 major stories of the day. That alone would be more than enough to at least at least keep you aware of what's happening around you. And I hear that people want to keep up with what's happening, but the waters have been muddied so much that they don't trust any news outlets or creators to tell them the truth. This idea that what they want to hear is unbiased and down the middle coverage of the news. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not at all what you want. You don't want somebody who finds a middle ground in a fascist system. There is no middle ground in eroding democracy. What you want is somebody who aligns with your values and tells you the truth, regardless of what the truth is. And if you do this, if you start to pay attention just a little bit more than you are, I want you to notice what happens as you start to learn more and more about what's going on. Because when you try to talk to people about what you're seeing and people look at you like you're crazy, or they tell you you're being dramatic, or they change the subject because they just can't deal with this right now, you too will realize that you're living in a completely different reality than they are. And that, my friends, is lonely. It's really, really lonely, which is just another reason why you may not want to leave the matrix. I have friends and family who I just can't talk to anymore. And some of them, they've aligned themselves with what's happening. And some of them have just stuck their head in the ground and just pretended like none of it's happening. And either way, that gap between us, between what I see and what they see, it's done real damage to our relationships. But here's here's what I've come to understand. Ignorance, ignorance isn't bliss. Far from it. Ignorance is just delayed pain. People are choosing comfort now at the cost of their ability to act later. They're choosing not to see so they don't have to feel bad. But the things they aren't seeing, those things are still happening. And eventually, it's going to affect them whether they're paying attention or not. See, here's something most people don't know. There's research out of Harvard by a woman named Erica Chenoweth that says it only takes 3.5% of the population showing up in sustained, nonviolent protests to make major political change very likely. 3.5%. That's it. For America, that's about 12 million people or the entire population of Ohio. And no, I don't have that number off the top of my head. Yes, I researched it. It doesn't take everyone. It doesn't even take half of us. It takes a critical mass of people who are awake and willing to show up. But we got a problem. We don't even have 3.5% of people who actually understand what's happening. Most people, most people are still stuck in the matrix. So before we can change anything, we have to wake people up. We have to help them see that the world that they think they're living in isn't real. And that starts with me and you, with us choosing to pay attention and see the realities of the world that we live in. And not because you have all the answers, not because you know exactly what to do, but because staying in the matrix isn't an option anymore. Because if you stay in the matrix, you're making a choice. You're choosing cipher. You're choosing the stake you know that isn't real because it's easier than facing what is. But look, I could be wrong about all of this. Maybe I'm the one living in delusion. Maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. Maybe I've convinced myself of something that just isn't real and I'm making myself miserable for no reason. Maybe the people who aren't as plugged in, maybe those people are actually healthier. Maybe if they've figured out how to protect their mental health in a way that I haven't. Maybe just focusing on my family and my job and my immediate world, maybe that's not ignorance. Maybe that's what we should all do. Just focus on ourselves. Who cares? Who cares about anybody else? And honestly, I don't know. I genuinely don't know if being this aware is better or if it's just making me miserable while everyone else gets to enjoy their lives while the ship we're on sinks in real time. But I'll tell you, when you see something, you can't unsee it. And I see what's happening. I see 8 people dead since the new year at the hands of a masked secret police force funded by our government. I see democracy being dismantled. I see the same patterns that happened in Germany in the 1930s happening right now. And I can't convince myself it's not real just because it would make me more comfortable. I can't choose the stake knowing that it's not real. Maybe that makes me maybe that makes me the crazy one. I don't know. But I'm left with this question. What will it take? What will it take for us to wake up? And no, not just for the next election, not just to vote differently, but to actually see that the system we're living in gives us just enough information to feel informed while it hides what actually matters from us. What will it take for enough people to see that this system isn't designed for the world that we live in today? And until we see that, until we really see that, we're going to keep ending up right here. We're going to keep watching democracy crumble while we focus on celebrity gossip or sports or whatever the fuck else they give us next. And I don't have the answers to how to wake people up. I really don't. I wish I did. I'd quit my job today and spend every single waking moment of my life doing just that. But I do think the first step is admitting that we are in the matrix, that what we think is reality, it just isn't. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. We are living through a historic moment in history, and our kids are going to ask us what we did about it. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves about what the answer to that question is going to be. So will you think about that with me? Anyways, my name is Landon. This is Soul Searcher. See you next time.